I'm focused on just one thing: helping people make profitable real estate investments in Dubai. Hundreds of investors reach out to me to get the data-driven and numbers-based advice, negotiate terms with developers, and eventually get properties with strong investment potential. Because if you don't professionally do it for thousands of hours a year, it's easy to make a bad investment instead of a good investment. Bad investments will not happen to you after watching this video, because I'm sharing with you this ultimate playbook. It consists of 4 parts. Part 1 – Making a decision to invest. I'll cover benefits, costs, risks, and potential returns. Part 2 – Selecting the right property. Everything about areas, developers, and property assessment techniques. Part 3 – Paying and closing the deal. I'll tell you about discounts, payments, as well as the buying and selling process. Part 4 – Making money. All you need to know about renting out and selling. Also check out the video description, where I'll share thousands of dollars of free materials about Dubai real estate investing. Okay, let's start with part 1. Making a decision to invest. What benefits do I get as a Dubai property owner? How do I get a residency or golden visa? First is the investor visa. With this visa, you can stay for 2 years with your spouse and children. If you still own the property, you can renew it after that too. Open a bank account, rent another apartment long-term, enroll your children in UAE schools, apply for a UAE driving license. You qualify by spending a minimum of 750,000 dirhams, which equals to 102.5 thousand US dollars. And there is a catch. To hold on to this visa, you have to visit Dubai once every 6 months. That's a lot of trips back and forth. And if you don't make it back to the city in time, your visa will be cancelled. And it also doesn't cover your children past the age of 25. If you want residency without the travel commitments, you should go for the golden visa instead. First, you can live in the UAE without restrictions. You can stay as long as you want. There is no minimum or maximum required number of days in country to keep your visa. So in fact, you can leave and return after several years and your status won't change as long as your 10-year golden visa is active. Another benefit that adds to the choice of a UAE golden visa is easy access to banking. Non-residents cannot open bank accounts. Residents with normal or golden visas can, but most banks will close your account when you lose your visa. So if you're not planning to live in the UAE full-time, a golden visa is the way to keep your account active. In general, opening a bank account can be challenging for people with certain passports. It's fine if you get a salary in a UAE company, but if you own a company and aren't employed, many banks will reject your application. In such cases, a golden visa definitely helps. And the third benefit is the ability to sponsor other people's visas. When you get a golden visa, it's not just for you. Your family also gets one for free. And family isn't just your spouse and children. Your parents are also eligible. This option is more stable compared to a normal visa. For example, if you got your visa through employment and lost your job, all your sponsored family members would lose theirs. With a golden visa, no one can fire you, so your family stays safe. Also, you can sponsor domestic helpers. For example, if you regularly come to the UAE with your family, you can sponsor a visa for your kid's babysitter or your driver and bring them along. But to qualify, you need to buy a property for 2 million dirhams or 546,000 US dollars. But there is a recent change that made it possible to get a visa after investing 130,000 US dollars. Here is how it works for new properties. If you are buying a property worth 2 million dirhams or more, you don't have to pay the full sum and you don't have to wait until construction is finished. As soon as you pay 20% down payment plus the 4% Dubai Land Department fee, you are eligible. Those 24% total about 480,000 dirhams or roughly $130,000. The speed of repaying the outstanding balance, your payment plan or the delivery date doesn't really matter. Practically, the whole process looks like this. First, after you've paid the down payment and DLD fee, you need to sign a sales purchase agreement, or SPA. The nuance is that if the project is just launched, the developer might not have the SPA ready yet. It can easily take 1 or 2 months for many developers to open the project escrow account and finalize the SPA. Second, after the SPA is signed, you need to get a CUD, Akut is a digital certificate issued by the Dubai Land Department for off-plan property transactions. It proves your ownership before construction finishes. Think of it as a title deed for properties under construction. Issuing Akut can take up to 2 or 3 weeks. Then you fill in the online application form and pay the application fees, which are around $1,000. All these steps can be done from anywhere in the world. But for the next step, you need to visit the UAE. The investor must pass a medical examination in a UAE clinic. It's just a simple blood test and fluorography. At this point, the investor will need to spend around 10,000 dirhams or $2,700 on the medical exam, Emirates ID, residency permit, and various administrative fees. Next is waiting. Officially, it can take up to 30 days, but usually it's much faster. Authorities use this time for due diligence. You don't need to stay in the UAE during this stage. And the final step is receiving your visa approval and Emirates ID. You'll get an email confirmation, and after that, consider it done. How much money do I need to buy a property in Dubai? In Dubai, the minimum starts at around 170,000 US dollars. From there, prices can vary massively across 3 tiers. This is the affordable tier. These are areas like JVC, Arjan, GVT, Sports City, Al Furjan, and Dubai Land. Prices for studios range from 170,000 US dollars to 220,000. One bedrooms are from 270,000 US dollars to 340,000 US dollars. Two bedrooms start at 390,000 to 490,000 US dollars. Three bedrooms are between $520,000 and $700,000. For this money, you could get into Asco edition in Dubai Land, for example. A one-bedroom apartment in that project will be fully furnished and designed, and the building comes with decent amenities like a gym and a rooftop pool. The price is around 185,000 US dollars. Now let's look at the high-end tier. These are the properties in top spots with great amenities. You'd be looking in downtown, Greek Harbor, and Dubai Hills. Now prices. Studios are between 380,000 US dollars and 620,000 US dollars, though some areas like Greek Harbor don't have studios. One bedrooms are starting at 490,000 US dollars and reach 800,000. Two bedrooms are from 740,000 to 2.8 million. And three bedrooms are between 1 and 3 million US dollars. Let's take Business Bay, for example. You'd expect to pay around 490,000 US dollars for one bedroom, like this one in Skyrise, a 3-tower complex by Benghazi. Finally, there is a luxury tier. These are the most exclusive and extravagant neighborhoods, typically reserved for ultra-wealthy such as the Palm, Emirates Hills, Jumeirah Islands, and Blue Waters. Prices start at approximately $1 million. For example, a one-bedroom on Blue Waters costs between 1.5 and 1.8 million. Two bedrooms are priced between 2 to 3 millions, and three bedrooms can go up to 6. If you want to step up even higher in price, you can look at property in luxury hotels. A 2-bed with a sea view in Atlantis the Royal on the Palm can be bought for between 5 and 7 million US dollars. And if you're looking at villas, the ones in popular locations like Dubai Hills will range from 2 to even 50 or 60 million dollars, and some are even more. The limit doesn't exist. An important note about this is that you don't have to pay for the property all at once. All the developers in Dubai offer flexible payment plans. I'll dive into this more later in the video. And there are a few other costs you should prepare for. Your property acquisition costs depend on the type of property you're buying. Let's say you're looking at an off-plan property priced at 500,000 US dollars. Off-plan is what we call new developments in Dubai. So you'll need to factor in the purchase price, the 4% Dubai Land Department or DLD fee, and the $1,500 of administrative fees. So that property would come to 521.5 thousand US dollars in total. If you're buying the same property when it's ready on the secondary market, you can expect to pay the purchase price, the 4% DLD fee, a 2% agency fee, and $4.5 thousand worth of trustee and legal fees. So in this case, the property would come to 534,000 US dollars. What would be my expenses after the purchase? First, there are service charges. These are paid to the developer for maintenance around the property. This includes common areas like parking and even pools and gyms. You'll pay a different amount depending on the size of your unit, and the charge itself ranges between $3 to $6 per square foot per year for apartments and about $1 to $2 for villas. Say you own a one-bedroom apartment. This would cost you between 2.5 to 4,000 US dollars a year in service charges. If you had a 2-bedroom, it'd be between 3 to 5,000 US dollars. And for a 3-bedroom, you'd be looking at 4,000 to 6,000. And if you don't rent out your property, your second expense will be housing fees. These come to 5% of your property's annual rental value. For example, if the Dubai municipality assesses your property rental value at $20,000 per year, your housing fee will come to $1,000. But you can get around this. Rent out your property for a year or longer, and the fee is covered by your tenant instead. And the third expense is standard utility bills. Again, you don't need to worry about this if you rented the property out.
Can the property be taken from me?
Unfortunately, yes, it actually can. But you can easily avoid this by paying attention to where you buy. In Dubai, there are two types of property ownership: leasehold and freehold. The type mainly depends on the area the property is in. A leasehold is significantly cheaper and means that your property is on a long-term lease. If you buy in a leasehold project, you can rent out the property and even sell it, but it has to be returned to the owner you bought it from after 99 years. Only a local can fully own the leasehold property. These properties are far less common now than they used to be. Freehold property ownership means that you own the property in its entirety. It's yours for as long as you want it, and you can pass it on through generations if you want to. Freehold is currently the most popular type of ownership in Dubai.
How much money can I make, and what's Dubai's real estate ROI?
Let's answer that by comparing Dubai to other global cities. Now, one peanut M&M represents 1 year of your life. Say you're investing in your 30s. On average, you have around 40 M&Ms left. You choose to invest in real estate in New York. Of course, Ryan Serhant sold you the place.
High above the hustle and bustle of Manhattan.
By the time you pay back the apartment's value from rent, your glass still has 20 peanuts. If you'd bought in London, you'd have 9, and if you invested in Zurich, 0. But if you'd bought in Dubai, 25 peanut M&Ms left. And that's just rent. Let me show you the bigger picture. Of course, your return on investment depends entirely on where, what, and when you buy in Dubai. But to give you an idea of what's possible here, I'll show you the average numbers from 2016 to now. Let's say you bought one bed 9 years ago. Amount invested, including 4% DLD fee, is $231,000. Average price increase is 38%. Rental income over the years, $127,000. Service charges over the years, $27,500. Total income, $187,000. ROI, 81%. Quick note for the finance folks. Keep in mind that this ROI isn't discounted and doesn't account for inflation. It basically means that if you bought an apartment in Dubai in 2016 and sold it today, you would have made back what you originally paid plus an extra 81% on top of that. But imagine you invested more recently, like in 2021, and sold it last year. Your ROI would be 59%. These are just averages, and they're not that impressive. So let's look at real success story. Here's the numbers for an investor who bought a villa in Palm Jumeirah in 2016. Amount invested, including 4% DLD fee, $2,850,000. Average price increase, 163%. Rental income over the years, $1.2 million. Service charges over the years, $100,000. Total income including rent and resale, $5.7 million. ROI, 200%. And if they'd bought in 2021, the returns would be a massive 156%. Of course, you can't expect returns like that for just any old property in Dubai. It comes down to the right area, unit, and the timing of the investment.
What if the developer goes bankrupt or tries to escape with my money?
In Dubai, developers are required to get a bank guarantee in order to register a new real estate project. This means that the bank has your back. If the developer does go bankrupt, the bank will cover the project with its own money. And if the developer tries to disappear, you're safe here too. Because the developer needs to open an escrow account in a government-regulated bank overseen by the Real Estate Regulation Authority. And they have to do it every time they want to start a new project. Then they deposit 20% of the total construction cost to this account. This is so they can prove they actually have the cash to start building. And once you've purchased the property, every single payment you make will be made to the same escrow account. And until they reach the agreed construction milestones, your developer can't access your money. If they don't deliver, they don't get paid. So there is no chance they're going to run away with your money.
Part 2. Selecting the right property. How do I know if the specific property is worth investing in?
I have some bad news for you. The perfect property doesn't exist. No matter how hard you try, you won't find something that ticks every box.
So your first step is to decide what you're hoping to achieve by investing and what level of risk is acceptable. Here are 3 investment goals you may set. The first is generating cash flow. You might be hoping for secure, stable returns on investment you can hold for years. That means investing in reliable rental properties that generate income no matter what. Or you might be focused on generating as much cash as possible. This can offer higher returns, but also comes with a higher risk. I don't mean you could lose everything. Real estate isn't BuzzFeed stock. The risk is about the stability of cash flows. The second potential goal is long-term resale. This goal is perfect for investors who want to secure the highest possible returns over a long period of time, but who are also okay with a moderate cash income stream along the way. This type of investment should expect a planning horizon of 5 to 10 years, or possibly even longer. So it's for those who have other income streams alongside ownership of the property. The third and riskiest goal is quick flipping. This is for get-in-get-out investors who want to leave the investment in a short period of time. This is the highest level risk investment in the market. So please don't fall for promises of get-rich-quick gurus and don't even try if you don't know what you are doing. And as soon as you've decided what you want to achieve with your investment, it's time for step 2. Defining the target property. This is where many investors fail, because what you need for specific goals and what you like are often completely different things. Your high-risk and often high-reward option is short-term rentals. There are 3 target groups you'd be looking at. First are tourists. They naturally prefer landmarks such as downtown or near the beach, the Palm, Marina, GBR, or Blue Waters. Second, business travelers. This group comes to Dubai on business trips and prefer to stay near the office hubs, meaning you'd be looking at places like Business Bay or the AFC. The third is expats. This group switches between different properties and different areas as a way of finding a better place to live. Short-term rentals are riskier because booking periods are short, meaning you need to constantly promote the property to get tenants. In a best-case scenario, a property would achieve a 95% occupancy or more, but the norm is around 75 to 80%. They also require initial costs to renovate and furnish the place. And as the owner, it's your job to cover all the utility and cleaning bills. However, if it's executed successfully, they bring higher returns than other options. We're talking about 25 to 35% higher than long-term rentals. The low-risk option is, of course, long-term rentals. While the returns are usually lower, it's far more stable investment. You should look at areas with high rent-to-price ratio. You figure this out by dividing the annual rental income by the property price. And this should give you an indicator of which areas have the best rental yields. Now let's discuss which types of properties you should look for when it comes to surviving market crisis. We'll take a historical example. Over here are the average apartment rental prices during the COVID period. During that time, rents for new apartment leases dropped by about 27%. Now compare that to the numbers on the right. They represent a different property type. These saw only a 13% drop. What kind of properties held up better? Villas and townhouses. And it's not just them. Bigger apartments show similar dynamics. In Business Bay, 1-bed units fell by 25%, while 3-beds dropped just 16%. In downtown, 1-bedrooms declined by 20%, compared to only 8% for 3-beds. Dubai Marina shows the biggest gap. Rents for 1-bedroom units decreased by 31%, while 3-bedroom rates slipped just 4%. Why the difference? Larger apartments tend to attract long-term residents, especially families. These tenants are typically more stable. They stay longer and make more considered decisions when renting. Meanwhile, neighborhoods that rely on short-term visitors and tourists tend to struggle during any economic shock, not just pandemic. So if you're thinking long-term, focus on family-friendly areas and larger units. They are more likely to offer consistent, reliable rental income, especially during uncertain times. Speaking of long-term investments, let's move on to the goal of holding for several years and reselling. I bet you know that the best tactic is to lock in a property that is high in demand but is limited in supply. The question is where to look for the undersupplied properties. Here's an example. Beachfront real estate. Let's take a look at the bigger picture. These 35,000 units along the coastline here make up only a tiny slice of roughly 800,000 ready units currently available for investors in Dubai. This means that beachfront properties make up just 4% of the entire market. And if you do the same calculations for all the developments under construction, the percentage doesn't shift much. Depending on whether you include Maritime City or not, waterfront properties are only 2 to 3% of the total. This scarcity has made a real impact on performance. In recent years, coastal areas have seen property values climb far faster than any broader market. But waterfront properties are not created equal in terms of risks and potential returns. If you're aiming for the highest profit, your best bet is an early-stage project in an early-stage area. However, because they're early-stage, they're a lot riskier. If you're looking for a long-term resale and would rather avoid the risk, look for high-quality developers in developed by one-of-a-kind areas. For example, the Palm Jumeirah, where even below-average projects can grow. Take a look at these graphs. These developer projects are far from the best in terms of value appreciation. These are their normal results. But they have a building on Palm Jumeirah. It's a standard building for this developer in terms of quality. But since 2020, prices on that building have gone up 25%. Best areas boost the price of even low-quality properties. But for those who don't want to wait for 5 or 10 years, let's talk about what you'd be looking for if your goal is quick flipping. And no matter how good you are at revealing high-potential opportunities, it's impossible to make a low-risk quick flipping investment, because many things can go wrong with it. Let me explain. You normally can't sell right after the down payment. There are still a number of steps to go through. You still need to sign a sales and purchase agreement, which can take a couple of months to be prepared, and only then you'll receive your account, which proves that you actually own the property. Congrats! Now you officially own the property, but still can't sell. The limitations differ between developers, but it's common that you cannot resell until you've paid off a certain portion of the property yourself, usually between 30 and 45%. These rules are non-negotiable even if you do find a buyer. And once you make it past the minimum payment terms, you might run into several other problems. The first is if the developer still has unsold units. Selling your own will put you in direct competition with them, and you can bet a potential buyer won't buy your property when it's set at a higher price. Secondly, setting a high purchase price when selling during construction. If a buyer can find a completed apartment for a similar price to a half-finished one, why would they pay your price? And the third is that mortgages are almost exclusively for ready properties. Selling during construction cuts out all mortgage buyers, losing a significant portion of potential clients. So how do we avoid all this? You have to invest in properties that sell out quickly. They should be very unique, in extremely high demand, and you need to be able to meet the minimum payment terms. It's high risk and it's only possible with a growing market. But there are success stories. Take a look at Bay Grove Villas by Nahil. From the start, you can say that this project would likely flip successfully because the initial demand far exceeded supply. Many investors failed to secure a unit despite being ready to pay millions for a villa. From April 2024 to February 2025, the average investor who resold their property achieved a 13% higher price, and some got a 23 or 25% upside. So look out for units in great locations with limited supply. If there are several thousand apartments or villas under construction, you have no leverage. A developer with low number of units that are likely to sell out, creating a high demand and increasing your property value. A rising market. If the market is skyrocketing, this strategy is much more likely to work in your favor. But if some world leader is starting a global trade war and Ray Dalio is predicting something worse than a recession, I wouldn't do it. So the next step is assessing execution risks. It's easy to choose the wrong developer, and developers can be broken into 4 categories. The first are market titans. They're really established in Dubai, having delivered up to hundreds of projects. They're consistent in reputation, quality, and construction timelines. Their downside is their flexibility. They may require strict payment plans like 75-25 or 80-20, meaning you pay a huge portion during construction. You can expect this from developers like Imar, Nahil, and Miraz. Second, challengers. They are not as huge as market titans, but are actively growing and successfully competing with them. Sometimes their buildings are even better quality, and they often have more flexible payment plans,
like 60-40 or even 50-50. Ellington, Shoba, Bengati, and MTAs are all in this category. The third type are selling not that good properties. These units are usually lack liquidity and are difficult to resell. It's hard to spot these developers if you're outside the market, but a good broker will know them. The fourth type is the newcomers. These are the developers who are new to the Dubai market or haven't been there for long. They're likely to offer more affordable prices and provide you with greater flexibility. Something to keep in mind is that a new developer does not equal a bad developer. They might even be better to work with, as they occasionally sell cheaper than well-known developers. So how can you make sure they're a good one? There is a system to reveal these hidden gems. Step 1. Look into their past work, but focus only on completed projects. If they say they've already delivered properties in other countries, that's a solid starting point. But careful, make sure you're double-checking the facts. Are those overseas developments legitimate? Can you find recent verifiable reviews from actual buyers or tenants? Next, take a look at who's doing the construction works. Some developers come from a construction background themselves, so you can often trace the quality of their past work. But here's a tip. The term contractor can mean just about anything. Even a company hired to clean up the site might be considered a contractor. Make sure you're looking at firms that handled major parts of the actual construction. Finally, research the leadership team. A developer backed by former top managers from other big developers is usually a safer bet. These are the people who've been around the industry, have real experience, and aren't likely to risk their reputation by overpromising or under-delivering. Once you've made sure your developer is reputable, you need to be on the lookout for delays. The thing is, any developer, no matter how good they are, can encounter delays for a number of reasons. If a developer claims they've never had delays, then it's likely they haven't been on the market for long. If they're rare and short-term, it won't be a major problem. But even if you found a great developer, you can make an awful investment if you select the wrong unit. So let's discuss how to do it right. At this stage, your goal is to choose the most unique unit possible to ensure it's in high demand by the market. Here's a non-exhaustive list of things to look out for. Great views, especially waterfront views and iconic landmark views. This often adds around 20% to rental price. Balanced indoor and terrace area size. This is especially important for small apartments. Spacious built-in wardrobes and walk-in closets in prime units. Spacious kitchens and closed kitchens. Having a closed kitchen is important for some nationalities. For villas and townhouses, another big factor is proximity to amenities. Being near but not directly backing into the pool, parks or shops is a major resale advantage. Vastu and Feng Shui compliance. Many of the real estate buyers in Dubai come from India and China, and this is a big deal for them. South-facing terrace, north-facing entrance, position of kitchen and bathrooms matter a lot. But all that was a qualitative analysis. Now let's run the numbers. I want to make this practical and take a real project. Say we're looking for a one-bedroom and are considering a one-bedroom apartment in Cove Grande by Imtiaz. Cove Grande is a 21-story residential building currently under development and with an estimated handover date of August 2027. One beds are priced at around 1 million dirhams or $270,000. The building is quite standard for Dubai, with amenities such as a gym, a pool and kids play areas. But all the apartments are coming fully furnished and fully designed. But how will we measure the investment attractiveness of this property? Firstly, we'll look at cash-on-cash return. This is a simple way to assess the percentage paid back by rent. Basically, it refers to the cash you make against the amount you invested in the property. The higher the number, the safer the investment. Even if your unit doesn't appreciate over time, you will still make money from rent as long as you own the property. Secondly, we look at ROI, or return on investment. ROI combines cash flow and property value appreciation and uses that to assess the overall profitability of the investment. So you've found your unit. Now it's time to calculate your property acquisition costs. This term means the size of investment you're about to make. And keep in mind that this number varies for off-plan and secondary properties. Let's calculate for an off-plan property using the example of Cove Grande. Here the biggest cost driver is price. Then we take into account the 4% Dubai Land Department fee and small administrative fees paid to the developer. This usually comes to around $1,500. So to buy a one-bedroom apartment, it totals at $282,000. For secondary units, you also pay the selling price and the 4% DLT fee. But because the developer isn't a part of the transaction, there are no admin fees. However, there are trustee services, which come to around 1.5 thousand, legal advisor services to check the contract, which is roughly $3,000 and agency fees, which comes to 2% of the original property price. It totals at $290,000. If our project was a ready one, the total acquisition cost would be $290,000. There are two really important things to take note of when it comes to agency fees. 2% for a ready property is the standard in the Dubai market. If someone is asking for more, it's time to find another agent. Brokers working in Dubai's primary market are paid standard agency fees by developers, meaning there are no agency commissions for buyers. So this means that a broker has no business asking you to pay commission. Let's return to prices. How do you know we're getting a good deal? For secondary properties, you can easily compare it to other similar units. Don't look at the listing price. Compare the asking price to the transaction price. Thankfully, you can always find the historical deals online, as Dubai has a transparent real estate market. Go to dxbinteract.com, click on Transactions, select an area or a project, enter the property parameters, including the type and the number of beds, click Search, and enjoy the detailed list below. When it comes to assessing the off-plan prices, it's important to use the right reference point. You'll need to look for a building in the same area, same or similar developer, and the same class of property. No good reference points in that neighborhood? Look at other areas. Think about how this development is priced in comparison to finished buildings on the market. Your next step is to spread the property acquisition costs over time and think about payment plans. Let's start with off-plan. Developers will offer structured payment plans like 50/50, 70/30, or 80/20, where part of the payment is made during construction and the rest after the handover. As I mentioned before, established developers often have stricter payment plans. Developers like MR usually have 80/20. This is because their buildings tend to sell out hours after the project is launched, meaning there is no need for them to offer flexible payment option. Remember that your payment plan, especially the frequency of payments and what they are tied to, will affect your investment case. Payments can either be tied to construction phases or to specific dates, or both. And if it's the construction phases, a developer might provide you with an estimated timeline so you can plan your cash flow ahead. But there is a catch. If the construction is delayed, you won't have to make up the next payment until it's completed. But if the construction moves faster than the developer told you, you'll have to make your payment sooner to match. So if you're locked into a payment plan, make sure you can access your finances quickly. And once the construction is complete, there are two payment scenarios. The first is paying all the outstanding balance in one lump sum. The second is entering into another payment schedule. It's common now to pay 30% over 20 or 30 months after construction is complete. One thing to note is that the benefit of flexibility does come with a price tag. Some post-handover payment plans increase the price per unit by up to 10%, which will lower your ROI. It's a good option if you plan to rent out the property and don't want to move money from another investment. You can use the rental payments to cover the needs of your payment plan. All of that being said, let's get back to our exemplary investment case. We're choosing between two real payment plans offered by Imtiaz: 50/50 and 70/30. Let's place the payments on a timeline. In the case of a 50/50 plan, your upfront investment will be almost $66,000. Then you'll pay $27,000 in 2025, $40,500 in 2026, and in 2027 you'll pay the outstanding amount of $148,500. For the 70/30 plan, your upfront payment will be almost $73,000. The difference is because of the higher price. In Cove Grant, the post-handover payment plan makes the price 10% higher, so in our case it's $297,000. During the construction period, you would pay around $30,000 in 2025 and $59,000 in 2026 and 2027. And after the construction is finished, your payments would be $29,700 for 3 years straight, because you would pay 1% of the total price every month. Finally, for this section, let's talk about the secondary market. The most important difference between this market and off-plan is that it's possible to get a mortgage. It's less common with foreign investors because the down payment will be 40% compared to the 20% offered to residents. Also, approval rates are lower, and even if they are approved, the interest rate will be significantly higher. This adjusts the costs related to acquiring a unit. Let's talk about the expenses that will come once it's occupied. We also call them operating expenses. When it comes to managing an apartment, there is one cost you can't avoid: service charges. This is what you pay to the developer to maintain the property. This will vary depending on the area, type of building, and the developer. However, you can expect to pay somewhere between $3 to $6 per square foot per year for apartments and about 3 times less for villas. The bad news is that these aren't small fees. A normal one-bedroom apartment can easily have $3,000 or $4,000 per year in service charges. You'll also need to pay housing fees to the Dubai municipality if the apartment has not been rented out. They're equivalent to 5% of the annual rental value of similar properties. However, if you do secure long-term tenants, they'll pay this. Plus, renting out the apartment long-term means you don't have any other operating expenses. The tenant is obliged to hand over the property in the same condition as it was at the start of the contract, and tenant will cover all utilities and maintenance costs. They'll even cover the realtor commission. In our case study, the plan is to rent it out, so we're only paying service charges. In Cove Grande, they're about $4 per square foot, and the whole apartment is 710 square feet. Therefore, the annual payment would be around $2.8 thousand US. However, the handover is planned in August 2027, so roughly a quarter of the first year we pay the service charges. Now it's time to calculate revenue. We'll start with rental revenues, as this value stream is the easiest to predict. We need to determine the current rates by finding the comparable benchmarks. This is easy for secondary properties because you can compare them to similar units in the same building. However, it's a little trickier if it comes to off-land properties. First, we'll look at the same neighborhood. If that area isn't built yet, we'll try to find a similar one. If the most similar one is already developed, we need to take away from its overall value. This is because the new area needs time to appreciate in value. Next, we look at the building. We need to find the most similar one. Ideally, the same developer and the same class. For example, you shouldn't compare Ellington to Azizi, or Address by MR, which is a premium building, with a more simple MR residence. Often you'll be looking at the first project the developer is building in the area. So in that case, find the closest match by a similar developer. If there is still no good comparison, we can try to estimate the numbers relative to your chosen developer's performance in other areas. For example, if Bengati's units are usually rented out for 20% more than similar Samana's units in the same area, then we can apply the same ratio in our case. Third, look at the type of unit. Things to consider are the number of bedrooms, studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom or more, square footage, floor, view, and furnished or not. Once you figure out the current rates, you may estimate growth. Rent increases yearly in Dubai, but it's your choice to take this into account or not. If you want to be on the safe side, then make a conservative assumption that the prices will not grow. But if you decided to factor in growth, then you need to base it on something. One possible approach is to take the historical growth rate and assume the future trend based on that. This is obviously tricky. The future trend can be different. Another way is setting the target number based on the rates of other properties and assuming the time period needed to achieve it. You also need to remember that Dubai has regulations to protect its tenants when it comes to rent increases. The government body called RERA, Real Estate Regulatory Agency, calculates the Smart Rental Index for each building. Here are their conditions. If the current rate is less than 10% below the market value, no increase is allowed. If the rent is 11 to 20% below the market value, a maximum increase of 5% is allowed. If the rent is 21 to 30% below the market value, a maximum increase of 10% is allowed, and so on, with a maximum possible increase of 20%. And if there is a market average growth that allows for a rent increase, the owner must give a 90 days notice, and if you don't, you'll have to wait another year. They also have strict rules about evicting tenants, so you can't just kick out the current one and find another. There are only 4 reasons you'll be allowed to evict a tenant. First, personal use. This is if the landlord or their immediate family intends to occupy the property. The landlord must provide a proof of this intention and give a 12 months notice. Second, sale of the property. In this case, the landlord also must notify the tenant with 12 months notice. Third, significant renovations or redevelopment. If the property requires major renovations that make it uninhabitable, the landlord can refuse to renew the lease. This also requires a 12-month notice. Fourth, tenant's breach of contract. If the tenant violates the terms of the tenancy agreement, such as by not paying rent, the landlord may refuse renewal. So, it's not that simple. Now let's apply all these inputs to our project. We did our research and realized that now there are no comparable buildings in the area. Cove Grande is located in Dubai Land Residence Complex, and until recently no big developers were building there. So what we do is a relative estimation. There was a similar case in another area, Al Furjan. There, Imtiaz has built a project that has a much greater quality compared to any other ready one. So the rental rates were 40 to 60% higher than the area's average. We assume that the same will happen with Cove Grande in Dubai Land Residence Complex. There, an average one bed is rented for $14,500 US. A 40% higher rate is $20,300 US. And if we compare it to other areas of the same class, it doesn't seem overrated. One bed in Westwood by Imtiaz and Al Furjan is rented for $27,000 US. And Westwood Grande in GVC is also the same rate, $27,000. So it's $20,300 and we want to be on the safe side, so we assume no rental rates increase over years. So here's our rental returns on the time scale. We would not make any rental income until 2027 because the building would be under construction. And as the handover is in August, we should start making money sometime around October. This would be $5,000 in 2027 and $20,300 per year going forward. What you should note is that such rental revenue won't be enough to cover the service charges and post-handover payments. However, it's a conservative scenario, and even in this case, it covers roughly 2/3 of the expenses. Now, as this project is a 100% residential area, it isn't suitable for a short-term rent. So for the purpose of this study, we won't look into the fees associated with Airbnb. So you've assessed your operating costs. Now let's look at how our unit will appreciate over time. It's impossible to know for sure what the growth rates will be over the next years. So what we need to do is create conservative, realistic, and optimistic growth scenarios and project the growth based on those. Keep in mind that we can't account for crises, wars, pandemics, crazy tariffs, and other macro shocks, because these are always unpredictable. We need to start with the market forecast, meaning how we think the prices will act on average. Here are some data points to consider. First, the average 10-year apartment price growth in Dubai real estate is 3.5%. As this period contains different economic phases and includes the COVID crisis, this number can be used in a negative scenario. Second, there are always some comparable ready properties. And it's fair to assume that the off-plan unit will reach the price level of the ready one when completed. This approach can be used in a realistic scenario. Third, these comparable ready properties will also grow while the off-plan property is under construction. So at handover, the new unit will reach the price of other ready properties after the increase. This is an optimistic scenario. Normally we do all three, but for our case study, let's go with a negative scenario. Now we apply the 3.5% market growth, and in 5 years from now the property price will reach $331,000 US. That's a 22.5% increase from now. Using this approach, don't fall into the trap of overpriced properties. In our case, the post-handover payment plan increases the price by 10%, so the value appreciation should be modeled based on the lower price. Now let's put everything together and calculate the key investment metrics for both payment plans. First, 50-50 plan. According to our case modeling, the total spent in 5 years would be $291,500 US. Rent would generate $61,000 US, and selling the apartment would bring us an additional $331,000 US. What does this mean? We divide rental revenue by total spend and get cash-on-cash returns of 21%. This metric shows what share of the invested amount can be paid back by rental returns. This is a solid result, given that we were quite conservative on our estimation. This also takes into account that the building was under construction for 2.5 out of those 5 years. For ROI, we divide the sum of the asset value price and rental returns by the total spend. This gives us 34%. Let's quickly take a look at the same metrics for the 70-30 plan. Here the numbers are a little lower. Cash-on-cash returns are 19%. And ROI is 23%. The difference comes from the higher apartment price because of the more flexible payment plan.
What are the best areas to invest in?
Starting with the best beachfront area. Since 2025, prices in Blue Waters grew by 181%, in Palm Jumeirah by 147%, and in the Mar beachfront by 63%. Now all of them are quite developed, so the next best beachfront area is a different area. It's an early stage community. None of the residential buildings have been built yet, so this is the best time to invest. However, unlike other early areas, many things are already in place, like a long beachfront that is already fully operational, 3 hotels, yacht marinas, and some coffee shops, and there is lots more planned. This area is going to become the next huge tourist destination. First, the beach here is special. It's a 21-kilometer long beach with open waters. This place is a bay, which ensures good water circulation and improves the imperfections that the Palm Jumeirah has. Second, there will be a huge mall. Its size will be comparable to Dubai Mall. Third, the master plan includes 86 hotels. That's 2 times as much as Palm Jumeirah has. Fourth, they're planning to build mega attractions in and near the area. One example is Seaside Golf Course, another is a huge artificial reef with corals and exotic fish, perfect for scuba diving and snorkeling. This area is Dubai Islands, one of the most popular communities among our clients. And if you want to find out if it's a good fit for your goals, our contacts are in the description. Besides all of the things we just discussed, there are 2 main reasons why serious investors are betting in this area. First, it's scarcity. Out of more than 800,000 units in Dubai, only 35,000 are beachfront properties. So they're around 4% of the supply, and getting a highly desired and low supply type of unit is the best thing you can do investment-wise. Second, growth. Even over the last 6 to 12 months, prices have grown significantly. Here's the chart with the price per square foot charged by one of the developers in this area. They grew by over 20% in about a year, and this trend will continue. Every new project will be launched at a higher price, so investors entering now will benefit from this growth. Third, the price level. The prices here are the lowest in Dubai for waterfront properties. Here's the price per square foot comparison for one of the boutique projects with a private beach on Dubai Islands versus Ellington Beach House on Palm Jumeirah. This difference is a long-term growth potential this project is expected to achieve. Now let's talk about this project a bit, because it ticks all the boxes for an exceptional investment. First, it's an Island B, which is ideal. Island B will be more exclusive. According to the master plan, the big part of the island will be occupied by villas, and there'll be around 6,000 units in total, villas and apartments included. That's 5 times fewer compared to Island A. Also, it's further from the flight path, so airplanes passing above Island A until the XB airport moves operations to Al Maktoum won't bother the residents. Second, it's a boutique project with just 100 units, which means you'll have leverage, have less competition, and be able to sell it with a higher premium. Third, the building has direct, private beach access. As I told you, beachfront properties are scarce, just 4% of the supply in Dubai, but ones with a private beach access, there are just a handful of them. Fourth, it faces the bay with panoramic golf course views. There are almost no other residential buildings on the island with that feature, and most likely there will never be, because this plot will be surrounded by hotels. And that's the point number 5. Right next to the project is the plot of Rixos, a luxury hotel brand. That's a huge advantage for Airbnb rentals, because it instantly indicates that the property location is awesome for tourists. Prices start here from around $670,000, and of all of the available unit types, 2 will perform best. If you want to know which units I'm talking about and generally get more detailed information about this project, check out a video we made about it. Dubai Islands is the top waterfront area for investment right now, but there is another area at the opposite side of the city that will grow for a completely different reason. Area number 2 is Dubai South, but not what you think. When hearing Dubai South, many people think about the townhouses near the airport, but I'm talking about a completely different place in Dubai South, and I believe it'll perform better than the market at a much higher rate than anything else nearby. All because of Al Maktoum International Airport. Look at the map. Now it's just this area with one runway. But by 2032, it will be one of the biggest airports in the world. It will occupy all this area, will reach 150 million passengers annual capacity, and will take over TXB airport. All operations will move to Al Maktoum. As a result, it will create 500,000 new jobs across different sectors, and many of these people will need to live nearby. So if you can find a project that's affordable but still great quality, you've hit the jackpot. The place where such projects are expected is Dubai South Residential City. As you can see on the map, there aren't many buildings around yet. Apartments in this area are priced much lower than anywhere else in Dubai. The entry point is great right now, and I'll explain it on the example of Avenue 888. This is a complex of 5 mid-rise buildings with shared terraces, gardens, pools, gyms, coworking, etc. The neighboring projects are much simpler and don't have amenities like this. Prices start at $218,000 or 800,000 dirhams for one bedroom. In Dubai land, for this money, you can buy a good fully furnished studio. In MTS project, that will be around $191,000. In GVC, you could also get a studio. In a project by Benghazi, this would be around $200,000. And in Motor City, a studio in Iman's project is around $215,000. But let's see what a one bed would cost in other comparable projects. In Midtown, in Production City, there is a similar concept, and it's around 10-minute drive from Dubai South. A one bed there is $270,000. In Azizi Venice, also in Dubai South, a one bed is $300,000. And lastly, Mirdiv, which is right next to TXB airport. So quite similar in terms of strategic location. The price of a one bed there is $300,000. So a one bed in Avenue 888 is priced 25 to 35% lower than everything else on the market. And by handover, prices should match. And of course, the biggest growth will happen after the first phase of the airport is finished. So apartments in this area are kind of both, a short and long-term investment. You can resell at handover for a decent premium, but if you wait for 5 years, it will be much higher. Next, let's look at an area with a super strong location. Its biggest strength is that academic city is just across the road. There are 27 universities and colleges there, and strong schools, all rated from good to outstanding. It's really well connected, and you can get downtown in around 25 minutes by car. And it's just 5 to 10 minutes away from an office hub nearby, which is another great area to invest in, and I'll talk about it in a few minutes. And soon the Dubai Metro Blue Line will have a station in Academic City. It'll be ready in 2029, and it makes the area we're talking about very attractive to working expats. The main downside of the area is that many ready buildings here are very simple, lower than average quality in Dubai. Even though rental yields here have been great. The rent-to-price ratio for studios is 11% on average. Other sizes are also not bad, around 8.5 to 9%. So when the location is that strong, sooner or later major developers are starting to pay attention. And that's exactly what's happening here. The price growth since 2022 is 69%, compared to the market average of 30%, which looks really impressive at first glance. But keep in mind that this number is driven by the launch of new expensive projects. So for a more realistic example of growth, here are two projects that were completed in 2022. The first, Time 1, has grown by 43% between 2022 and 2025, and the second, Benghazi East, has grown by 40% in the same period, which is still really strong, about 1.3 times higher than the market average. This area is Dubai Land Residence Complex, or the LRC, and same as in Dubai South Residential City, I see the most potential in affordable, decent quality apartments. For example, there is a new project with studios priced from $155,000 to $170,000. That's much cheaper than similar projects in the Dubai Land Residence Complex, as you can see from this chart. And in general, that's the lowest entry ticket possible for a good investment in the current Dubai market. And now let's talk about the area I mentioned before. The one that's just 5 minutes away by car from Dubai Land Residence Complex. This area is one of Dubai's major areas with 100,000 square meters of office space. It's a tech-free zone, so a lot of space here is occupied by startups, coworking and corporate headquarters. So it has all the benefits as Dubai Land Residence Complex. But there is one huge infrastructure upgrade coming, and it will bring this area to another level. That's Metro. Dubai government is investing $5.6 billion into a 30-kilometer line connecting different parts of the city with its existing metro routes. It aims to have carried 320,000 passengers by 2040, and it's planned to be ready by September 2029. And one of the stations will be in Silicon Oasis. the area we are talking about right now. With metro access, good road connectivity, walking distance access to offices, and being right next to academic city, Silicon Oasis becomes a very high potential area. By the way, it already has strong rental demand and good returns. Rent-to-price ratios are typically between 8 and 10% depending on the apartment size. Plus, the area has grown quickly, around 50% since 2022, compared to 30% average in the wider Dubai market. Some strong developers are launching new projects here. One of them is Ellington. To give you an idea of the prices, one bed in their project, Ellington Hill Gate, is around $350,000. Two beds are $550,000. And 3 bedrooms are roughly $700,000. Right now, Silicon Oasis looks like this. But the next area we'll be talking about looks like this. I mean, there is nothing there, but quite soon it will be much more than just a desert. This area will be impossible to recognize. In a way, this community will be similar to 2 other areas in Dubai, Dubai Hills and Al Barari. By the way, both of them are growing great. Apartments in these areas have significantly outperformed the market. One of the reasons why they are growing fast is that they are green. And this is a really unique and attractive feature for Dubai. The new community we're talking about will be even greener. There'll be 35,000 trees and just 7,000 residential units. It's called Gulf Woods. Gulf Woods is developed by Majid Al Futtaim. This is the developer that built Mall of the Emirates, several hotel buildings around Middle East, including Kempinski and Sheraton, and developed Tilal Al Gulf, a big villa and townhouse community. Gulf Woods isn't just a unique concept. It's also well priced because the area is currently at the early stage. To give you an idea of growth potential, let's compare it to Al Barari. Apartments in Al Barari are priced at around $610 per square foot for ready properties. That's approximately 30% higher than in Gulf Woods. One-bedroom apartments in Al Barari rent for approximately $35,500 per year. We can estimate that a one-bedroom unit in the Gulf Woods will generate a similar rent once construction is completed. That gives us a rent-to-price ratio of around 7.7 to 8.7%, nearly double the Dubai market average. The current prices are $400,000 for a one-bed, $820,000 for a two-bed, and $1.3 million for a three-bed. And finally, let me tell you about the area that was right under our noses for a long time, but remained completely unnoticed by most of investors. This area has an awesome location. On the waterfront of Dubai Creek, close to a mall, just 12 minutes from downtown, and moreover, it has a metro station. The reason why it was commonly overlooked is that for many years it was mainly a leasehold area, meaning that only locals could fully own property there. But now, 330 plots have transitioned to freehold status, so there is a huge potential for foreign investors. This area is Al Jadaf, and now, when it's becoming a freehold area, it's rapidly developing. DEWA, Dubai Electricity and Water Authority, is building their new headquarters there. This will bring 3,000 new employees to the area, and I bet many of them will prefer living near work. Also, the new blue metro line will be connected to Al Jadaf metro station, which means that residents will be just one station away from Creek Harbor. Prominent developers are starting new projects. The two key names are Ellington and Bengadi. Bengadi is probably the main builder in the area right now, and they've already delivered Bengadi Gateway and Bengadi Avenue there. These projects gave investors a rent-to-price ratio of around 7.5 to 8%. For comparison, the average in Al Jadaf is 6.3%. They're launching a new building here in a great spot, 2 minutes from DEWA headquarters, between the canal and the metro station. Pricing starts at $365,000 for a one-bedroom, $490,000 for a two-bedroom, and $750,000 for a three-bedroom.
What are the best developers for investing?
This developer was founded in 2014, and their buildings almost always outperform growth of the area they're in, and that's because they do one thing very well. First, take a look at this chart showing the growth of their buildings in GVC. The blue bar representing the average apartment growth in GVC since 2022 is 29%, which is right in line with the rest of the market. But here's the growth of 6 buildings built by the same developer in GVC, and it's obvious that except for one, they all grew much faster than the area, at 42% on average. So the returns were 1.5 times higher than GVC's average. Have you figured out who I'm talking about? Here's one more hint. Their quality is widely recognized, their new launches are crazy popular, and what's interesting is that when other developers are letting them build in their closed master communities, this developer often beats their growth. Their project Wilton Park in Shoba Heartland grew by 57% in 1 year, and Woolton Terraces grew by 38%. At the same time, Shoba's buildings, and Shoba is the master developer of the area, grew by 32%. This developer is Ellington. Now they're developing projects in Silicon Oasis, Dubai South, Meydan, Dubai Islands, and in many other places. It's worth paying attention to their project in Dubai South. Look at the chart. It has the lowest price you could pay for Ellington quality throughout Dubai. If you're interested in Ellington's properties, you should be aware that it's often not easy to get a desired unit. Their projects are in extremely high demand. For example, when they were launching Cove on Dubai Islands, the number of people who expressed their interest and made a prepayment was around 3 times higher than the total number of units, and many investors failed to get the desired properties. But there is also another developer delivering amazing returns to their investors. They're the best for stable growth. This developer has been around since 1997. They are now one of the biggest names in Dubai real estate. They have a large, complex business, but the core principle that drives their growth is surprisingly simple. I'll explain it in a moment, but first take a look at this chart. The blue bar is the average apartment price growth in Dubai, and these next 6 bars show the growth of each community built by this developer. They're all well known: Dubai Hills, Greek Harbor, Arabian Ranches 1 and 2, Beachfront, and South. Most of them have one thing in common. Most of them are growing much faster than the rest of the market. You probably know who I'm talking about. It's Emaar. And as I mentioned, they use a simple formula to drive the growth of their master communities. I'll show you how. Say this area is a master community built by Emaar. They announced their first building at around $550 per square foot. Then they release a second building, which is very similar to the first. But because the first one sold out, they can price the second building at $600 per square foot. And because the first building is just as good as the second, the prices in the first building rise too. Then they announce a third building at $650 per square foot, and a fourth at an even higher price. By the time the buyers in the first building resell, their unit has already appreciated by a lot. And that's how Emar's master communities rise in value much faster than the rest of the market. You might think that the same strategy would work in any master community in Dubai, but that's not the case. There are 3 reasons why Emar's communities appreciate faster than others. First, the richness of the community. Buyers need a good reason to pay a premium, so it needs to be exceptional. Areas like Dubai Hills have all kinds of cafes and restaurants, a huge mall within walking distance, a big park, strong schools, hospitals, golf courses, and many other things. That makes it ideal for all kinds of residents. Second, the size. Master communities don't work on a small scale. Emaar builds on huge plots of land, so they can keep launching and increasing the prices over many years. Like in Dubai Hills again. The first launch was a decade ago, and there are still new buildings being released right now. But a smaller master community means there is only space for a few launches before it's full, and then the appreciation slows down. Third is their popularity. Emaar is the #1 developer in Dubai, and this means that their projects sell out fast. People will pay a large deposit to reserve a unit in their new project, even before they got the idea of what the building will be about. No pictures, no brochures, just the information that Emaar is launching something new. So, your best strategy to maximize ROI with Emaar is to get into a new master community early. Now it's villa communities like Oasis and Grand Polo Club. And Emaar won't stop there and will launch many more. Now let's talk about another government-backed developer. They have many different accolades, but the main reason they're on this list today is because their properties are valued forever. The best developer for long-term investing. This developer has been building projects since 2003, and many years later their developments stay in high demand, relevant, and the value keeps increasing. One of the biggest reasons why is that they have the best spots, like here on Palm Jumeirah. Look at the area occupied by their buildings. They have direct road access, they are close to the mall, they have direct beach access, they have sea and skyline views. Plus, the water flows best in this area. Look at the price growth in one of the complexes here. It was completed in 2007, but even today, 18 years later, it stays relevant. Since 2022, it's grown twice as fast as the rest of the market. And this is another one. It was finished in 2009, but look how it grew recently. The demand never dies for them. But how could they secure spots like that? Well, they build these huge mega areas. They're behind communities like Palm Jumeirah, Jumeirah Islands, Dubai Islands, and Palm Jubail Ali. Of course, I'm talking about Nahil. Building iconic master communities is their core skill, but there is another developer that is equally impressive in this. And this developer is the best for investing in luxury waterfront properties. This developer is also government-backed, and they own some of the best land in the city, so they always get the prime waterfront spots. Let's look at their projects. Blue Waters Island. It's a man-made island next to GBR and Dubai Marina. It was built in 2018, and it has Ain Dubai, which is the world's biggest observation wheel, over 50 restaurants, and a private beach for residents at the Banyan Tree Hotel. On the graph you can see that since 2020, the prices have risen by crazy 181%. And this is not an accident. Another project this developer created is Jumeirah Bay Island. It's one of the most expensive places to live in Dubai. One villa even sold for almost $90 million. It's close to Dubai International Financial Center and contains the Bulgari Resort and Bulgari Residences. Since 2020, the prices here have risen by 120%. And the developer behind these projects is called Miraz. They create really well-planned waterfront neighborhoods that are among the most desired in Dubai. And now their main project is Asora Bay. It's a very exclusive luxury community on the tip of La Mer. This is the closest waterfront spot to the AFC, and now properties will be serviced. Among the units there are huge mansions with the largest plots in Dubai. Miraz is now focused on luxurious and ultra-luxurious communities only, but there is another private developer that successfully builds more affordable master communities at scale. This developer has been in real estate since 1992, but they also do many other things. They own Vox Cinemas, Carrefour in the Middle East, and develop buildings for premium hotel brands like Kempinski, Sheraton, Novotel, and Pullman. They also build famous malls like Mall of the Emirates in Dubai, Mall of Egypt, and Mall of Oman. Their main residential project in Dubai is Tilal Al Ghaf. It's a villa and townhouse community built around a large lagoon. Ilan was the first sub-community handed over in 2023. From the launch to handover, prices grew by 95%, and in the last 3 years they've grown by 107%. This developer is Majid Al Futtaim. Now they're building Ghaf Woods, a huge forest-like residential master community with 35,000 trees. Looks a bit like a Mar approach. However, unlike large government developers, they offer much more flexible payment plans. While you pay 80% during construction for your Mar, Majid Al Futtaim is expecting you to pay just 60%. So you have more leverage and can mortgage the substantial price share on handover. By the way, there is one more private developer that's actively growing in challenging positions of the old guard, the best new developer. They build modern, fully designed and furnished apartments at affordable prices. Their units are ready to move into immediately, and because they act as their own contractor, they build quickly too. So this has made them one of the most reliable choices in the mid-tier segment. Let's look at how their first ever project in Dubai performed. This was in Al Furjan, and it was delivered in 2022. The average one bedroom in this area rents for around $17.8 thousand per year, but one bedroom in this developer project rents for around $25.7 thousand. That's nearly 45% higher, and that gave investors a more than 10% rent-to-price ratio, twice the Dubai average. But that's not all. Here you can see how apartments in this building grew in value, 56% since the launch, again almost twice the Dubai average. Flash forward to 2025 and they have around 20 projects across Dubai, delivered or under construction. This developer is Imtiaz. They build in GVC, Dubai Land Residence Complex, in Meydan, Dubai Islands, and they're actively gaining the market share by delivering relatively affordable high ROI projects. This next developer is also privately owned, and there is one big thing that sets it apart from most others: the best developer for cashing out quickly. If your goal is to make money as fast as possible, you should get to know this developer. They've been around since 2008 and they're known for building fast, often in just 1.5 years after the launch. Let's look at the projects they delivered in 2024. All of them are built to this timeline. The chart on your screen shows that their value growth during construction was between 10 and 39%, which makes the average growth 24%. That's a great result for such a short time. And there is more than the price growth. The average rent to initial price ratio was 10.5%. That's way above the Dubai average and even the area average. The developer is Bengadi. The performance they're showing now is the result of consistent quality improvement while keeping the prices affordable. The construction timelines are really quick. That became possible because they're vertically integrated, meaning they do everything in-house, so they have full control over the building process. And the other reason is that they also start selling buildings when the construction has begun, which is different to many other developers who start building a year after the launch. Bengadi projects often have a strong rental potential. But now, let's discuss the best developer for renting out. This next developer is a lot smaller than some of the others, but every project they launch delivers exceptional rental yields. This graph shows you the average rent-to-price ratio for each apartment type in 6 of their buildings. You can see the ratio for studios, 1 bedrooms, and 2 bedrooms. And you can see that all the apartment types are generating good returns. So I'll make it a little simpler and show you the average rent-to-price ratio across all 6 of these developers' projects. It's not bad, but it's not crazy impressive either, right? So let's look at one more angle, the rent-to-initial price ratio. Now the numbers are looking fantastic. Investors get a 10 to 14.1% gross return on their investment every year. If we include operating expenses, then the net yield would be 1.5 to 2 percentage points lower. This developer is Iman. They've delivered 8 buildings since 2016, and it's hard to find this quality at such a low price anywhere else. There is a high standard in everything from lobbies and elevators down to tiny details like the tiles inside the apartments. And some of their projects experience huge growth as well, like Oxford 212 in GVC. Its price has almost doubled in 3 years.
How to get a high yield by renting out Dubai property. Of course, you want to make as much money as possible, but rental property investing is a game of risks and returns. Your strategy could be minimizing risk but getting lower profits, or getting higher profits with higher risk. And in this quadrant, we have short-term rentals. With short-term, we're talking daily, weekly or monthly rentals like Airbnb. If you manage it right, properties like this can earn up to 30% more than a standard long-term lease. That's because the rental rates for short-term are much higher. Here's a quick example. This is a 1-bed in 5242 tower in Dubai Marina. The average yearly rate divided by 12 works out to 10.7 thousand dirhams monthly, but rented for a month on Airbnb, 16.3 thousand dirhams. That's a big jump, and that's for July, which is a low season. The price for December, for example, is 28,000. That's 3 times the difference. So even though you have additional costs to run a short-term rental, a 60 to 200% price difference makes up for everything. But like all good things, there is a trade-off. The first is that short-term rentals can be seasonal. In summer it's slow, bookings and prices dip, as we've just seen with the example of the 1-bed in Marina. Also have a look at the average Airbnb nightly rate across every month of the year. From June to August it's not great, but October, November, January and February are your sweet spots. Second to this, you can't expect that your property will be filled every day of the year. In fact, a typical short-term rental property is only booked for 255 nights a year, so you need to expect vacancies. And the third is that during economic downturns, they get hit hard. Take a look at what happens to global travel during recession. According to the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, from 2007 to 2009 there was a 13% drop in international trips. This directly affected both the occupancy rates of holiday homes and the prices owners could charge. Short-term rentals can bring a lot of cash, but you have to take some risks. So if you're not willing to take those chances, you might prefer long-term rentals. These sit in the lower risk, lower returns quadrant. With a long-term rental, you can expect your tenant to sign for a year and potentially stay even longer. This means consistent income and less worrying about vacancies. Another bonus is that in Dubai, cash is paid up front. We're old school here, and tenants pay with 1 to 4 checks a year, but as the owner, you get a nice lump sum prepayment. Sounds pretty good. So what's the catch? Well, as we saw, a longer tenancy means a lower returns. And you're also locked into rental price. With short-term rentals, you can change the prices every day if you want to. If the market rates go up, you can adjust accordingly, but with long-term rentals, there are strict rules around changing it whenever you want. If the current rate is 10% below the market average, no increase. And even if the difference is up to 40 or 50%, you can only increase the rent up to 20%. That lack of pricing freedom is just part of the bigger trade-off when it comes to choosing long-term rentals. Because there is one key difference between short-term and long-term rentals – flexibility. With a short-term lease, you can choose to sell or stop renting it at any time. You can even come and live in the property yourself for the holidays. Long-term rentals aren't so simple. Not only are you stuck with a rental rate, but you also have to give your tenant a full 12 months notice when their lease is up. Unless your tenant breaks some serious rules, you can't just evict them. Only if they fail to pay rent, sublet the property without your permission, use the property for illegal activities or something other than living in it, cause damage, make structural changes, violate public safety, or fail to comply with legal requirements. So generally, if you're after high returns and are willing to take some risks, short-term rentals might be for you. And if you want stability and less hassle, go for long-term lease. If you want personalized advice on the best option for you,
Message us on WhatsApp and we can help you decide. But even the best rental strategy won't work if you're in the wrong location. You have to choose your area wisely. What's the best area for a rental property in Dubai? This could have been simple. For long-term, go for residential area. For short-term, choose the most desirable touristic one. But it's not that easy. I'll break it down with some real examples. Let's take Blue Waters. On paper, it looks perfect for tourists. It's only 50 acres, so it's walkable, but really well connected to the rest of Dubai. It's a 10-minute walk to Dubai Marina on foot and 25 minutes to downtown by car. It's a really lively area with over 200 retail and dining outlets, street performances, and it's home to AIM Dubai observation wheel. Sounds ideal, right? Well, I have some bad news. Blue Waters is overpriced. While it looks attractive, the rent-to-price ratio is not that good. Let's look at the numbers. The average price for one bed is $1.3 million, making the long-term yield around 6%. Your net short-term yield, after all the costs, is roughly 7.5%. For a two-bed, it'll cost $2.4 million, with a 4.7% yield long-term and 6% short-term. And a three-bed is even lower, costing $3.5 million at a 4.5% for long-term and less than 6% short-term yield. Now compare that to a few years ago. In 2019, a one-bed cost $670,000 US, giving you a long-term yield of 11.8% and a 14.7% short-term yield. Two-bed was $930,000 US, so it's an 11.8% long-term yield and a 15% short-term yield. And a three-bed outperformed the rest, costing $1.3 million US, with a 13% long-term and massive 16.5% short-term yield. Blue Waters can teach us one big lesson. Timing matters. If you can get into a developing area early, before it explodes in value, then you can lock in a great price and enjoy the returns. But of course, it's a bit riskier. Now let's look at long-term rentals. You want to focus on the livability of the area, meaning solid residential infrastructure, good schools, parks, hospitals, shopping malls, and easy access to main hubs. Let me show you what I mean. Back in 2021, you could rent a one-bedroom apartment in Dubai Hills Estate for around $16.3 thousand US per year. Fast forward to today, and that's nearly doubled. So what happened? Dubai Hills got mostly built out. The Dubai Hills Mall was finished in 2022, and it's one of the best malls in Dubai. There is an American hospital and James Wellington Academy, a school with a great rating. There is Dubai Hills Park, an 18-hole golf course, and a business park with modern office spaces. Now if we compare current rental rates to the initial prices 5 years ago, the rent-to-price ratio is really strong for long-term rentals. One-bed units in Dubai Hills rent-to-price ratio is 10.3%. Two-bed units in Dubai Hills rent-to-price ratio is 10.9%. And three-bed units in Dubai Hills offer a notably high 12%. Areas like Dubai Hills offer stronger, more stable returns, because it was designed to be extremely attractive to residents looking to settle. So timing and infrastructure are everything when you're choosing the area. Then it's time to move on to step 3. Selecting a project. And selecting the right project is one of the trickiest parts of the process, because developers love to dazzle us. They'll try to tell you that there's superior quality, huge number of amenities, expensive kitchen appliances, and pools on the balcony will make you millions from rent. But this doesn't guarantee a good rental project. How can you spot one? Well, there are 3 ways. First, ask yourself, who's your ideal tenant? And more importantly, what would they want? Imagine you're targeting affluent residents. You're choosing between 2 projects in Dubai Islands. Both are low-rise and both have beach access. Now here's the difference. This one is right under a flight path, and this one is further from the flight path and doesn't have just any beach access. It has private beach access. Which one do you think your target renter would prefer? When they go to market, a tenant will go for the one where they can avoid tourist crowds and without airplane noise. It's about what makes life most comfortable for the renter. Second, find the project that stands out. It doesn't have to be the most unique project in Dubai. Often it's enough if it's unique for the neighborhood. Take Al Furjan. Here's what the normal apartment looked like here. And then Imtiaz enters the market with Westwood. It's a 12-story residential building with a mix of studios and one-bedroom apartments. But it's fully furnished in design, it has high-quality kitchens, and general build quality is on another level compared to other apartments in the neighborhood. So an average studio rental rate in Al Furjan is $13,000 US, and a one-bed is $19,000 US. But for a Westwood apartment, a studio's rental rate is $17,000 and a one-bed is $26,000. Just because Westwood is a unique building for this area, the rental rates are 35% higher. The third way to spot a good rental opportunity: have a need for speed. The faster your project is built, the faster you can start generating income. Always check your developer's delivery timeline and their track record. Do they normally deliver on time? Now you've locked in the project. The next step is picking the right unit, and it's really easy to do it wrong. This is because the bigger, flashier unit isn't necessarily the best choice. In fact, a smaller unit might bring you a better return. Let's take a look at the two completely different areas in Dubai. In GLT, an average ready studio is priced at around $205,000 and can be rented out at an average rate of 17.5 thousand US dollars, giving you a rent-to-price ratio of 8.5%. But as the number of bedrooms increases, the rent-to-price ratio goes down. Even adding just one bedroom brings your rent-to-price down to 7.5%. And once you get to 3 bedrooms, the average rent-to-price ratio is 5.8%. It's the same for villas. In Arabian ranches, smaller units show around a 5% rent-to-price ratio, and larger 4 to 5 bedroom units sit at around 4%. So you might be thinking, great, I'll just buy the smallest unit every time. Not always. Let's rewind to the COVID years. The graph shows the average rental rates for one-bedroom apartments in downtown. From 2019 to 2021, the average rates dropped by 20%. This is a mix of new and renewed contracts. Now look at 2 beds. They dropped by 14%. And here are 3 beds. The decline is just 10%. And the same trend is relevant for other areas. So the insight is, smaller units offer better returns, but bigger units are more resilient during crisis. But what if you have to choose between 2 similar units? Again, ask yourself, what your future tenant would want. I can speak from personal experience here. Several years ago, my wife and I were considering 2 two-bedroom units in the Grand and Creek Harbor. They have quite similar layouts, and we know that the off-plan stage the owners paid the same price per square foot. Both had a view of the waterfront and the Burj Khalifa and a similar rental rate. What do you think we chose? Unit 01 has a quite spacious open-plan kitchen and a dining space, sitting at 4.7 by 4.3 meters. It has a generous amount of storage with a full walk-in closet in the master. Now Unit 02 also has an open-plan kitchen, but smaller. Actually, it's smaller than the one bedroom in the same building. There is also significantly less storage space than in Unit 01. Of course, we went for the first unit. Now its rental price is $55,000 per year. And the second unit is now rented for $49,000 for a year, because practicality matters for tenants. In that example, the views between the apartments were similar, but usually developers will slap a higher price on units on higher floors with better views. But is it worth it to pay more for the views? Open water and landmark views can boost the rental rates by roughly 20%. If the sales price difference is less than that, then it may be worth it. Once you found the best unit, the next step is securing a payment plan that fits your investment strategy. When it comes to payment plans, we're talking about more than just convenience. The payment plan you choose can completely change your investment returns. Imagine you buy a $1 million apartment and pay the full sum in cash up front. You factor in your acquisition costs, the purchase price, DLD fee, and the admin fees. All this comes to $1,042,000 US dollars. Your property is still under development, so you won't see any rental income for the next 3 years. But in year 4, it's finally ready and you rent it out for a net income of $100,000 US dollars a year after service charges. Setting aside property value appreciation, you've made back $200,000 US dollars over 5 years. Your cash-on-cash return comes to just over 19% in over 5 years. Not bad, but what if you used a different strategy? Let's see what happens with a flexible payment plan. Say you go for a 50-50 plan. The first 50% of your payment will be paid over the 3-year construction period. In the first year, you'll pay 30%, so your initial investment comes to $342,000 US dollars. In your second year, you'll pay another $100,000, and another in year 3. The remaining $500,000 US dollars is then paid in year 4, after the property handover. So your rental income will still be $200,000 over 2 years. And your total acquisition cost will be the same $1,042,000 US dollars. Looks like there is no difference in returns, but there is a big one. Because that extra cash you held onto during the 5 years, you can invest it elsewhere. A savings account, stock market, crypto, you name it. And because this investment will generate returns too, You can count these profits as well. Let's say you play it safe and expect a 5% annual return over this period. You could make an extra $90,000 during the 3-year construction phase. And it makes a massive difference. Your total 5-year return becomes $290,000, increasing your cash-on-cash return to 28%. You didn't take any major risks, you just used the flexible payment plan to your advantage. Once your property is ready to rent, it's time to move on to the final step. Because managing a property is a mission. But you don't have to do it alone. Step 6. Build a team. It's not impossible to manage rental property in Dubai on your own, but if you want to save time and make more money, you need professionals. If you're investing in a short-term rental, a good property management company is totally worth it. They know what they're doing and they're gonna save you an enormous amount of time. They have the scale and expertise, and they manage hundreds of similar properties. They work on a profit-sharing basis and take around 20% of your revenue. Here's what they take off your plate: marketing and listings. They'll create polished listings with professional photography and detailed descriptions, and post them on platforms like Airbnb. This massively increases your exposure and keeps the property booked. Pricing and revenue management. They use market data to update your nightly rate dynamically, so you're always maximizing revenue. Yes, booking and communications. They handle all inquiries, check-ins, check-outs, and any issues during their stay. Housekeeping and turnover maintenance. They'll schedule cleaning, restock essentials, organize maintenance, and if they need to, fix anything guests break. Licensing. Short-term rentals in Dubai need a permit. Property managers will handle the licensing, reporting, and make sure you tick every legal box. Financial management. They collect rent, deduct their fees, and deposit your profit. You'll get a clean financial statement every month to track your earnings. If you're going a long-term route, it's much easier. There is one tenant a year, meaning fewer turnovers and a lot less work, but that doesn't mean you should do it alone. A real estate broker can save you time, and the best part is that they're usually free to work with. Their commission is paid by the tenant signing the contract, so you have nothing to lose. A real estate broker can help you advertise the property. They'll create a great listing and post it on Dubai's major portals like Property Finder and Bayut. Screen tenants. They'll handle the background checks and financial verification. Negotiate the lease. They'll get the best terms and make sure everything complies with RERA and DLD rules on your behalf. Collect the rent. They'll collect the checks and deposit them into your account. Conduct move-in and move-out inspections. They'll prepare a report at the end of the tenancy, so if anything is damaged at the end, you're covered. Handle lease renewals and exits. When the lease ends, they'll help you renew or find a new tenant. Should I buy a secondary or an off-plan property? Both options can bring you great returns, but it depends on your personal circumstances. Let's take a look at the pros on both sides. Why buy off-plan? They usually have flexible interest-free payment plans. This is great if you're an international buyer and don't want to spend the full amount up front. If you're a non-resident, it's unlikely you'll be able to get a mortgage. So this may be a better option. I'll speak more about mortgages for non-residents later in this video. On top of this, your building will gain value during the construction period as the area develops and the market grows. Off-plan lets you buy into an area at its earliest stage, and that gives you the best chance at long-term appreciation. Overall, buying off-plan is easier. You can buy quickly and complete the whole transaction without stepping foot in Dubai. So then, why would you buy a secondary property? Well, if you're planning to live in Dubai right now and waiting several years for your property to be built just isn't an option. Or if you want to start earning straight away, a secondary property is ready to be rented out immediately, so your returns begin sooner. The rental income from the property can also help you cover your mortgage payments, partly or even fully. But there are a few things to keep in mind. Buying a ready property isn't as fast process as off-plan. It can take up to 3 to 4 months, especially if you're using a mortgage. You'll need time to get mortgage approval, find the right property, negotiate, and close the deal. And sometimes sellers can change their mind at the last minute. So whether you choose off-plan or secondary really depends on your timeline, your budget, and your goals.
Part 3. Paying and closing the deal. Can I get a discount? Did you know that thousands of investors get major discounts from developers when buying real estate in Dubai? In fact, we've already saved millions for our clients by using 4 proven methods to get better financial terms. So today I'm gonna walk you through these 4 methods, share real-life examples of them, and show you how you could pay thousands of dollars less for your property. Starting with the first method, getting in early. Not only will it strengthen your negotiation position to get a discount, but it will also allow you to get a better property. Because if you're not early, You're competing with hundreds of buyers storming developers' offices on the sales launch day. And when it happens, it makes no sense for developers to engage in negotiation with you. They're selling anyway. So let me share the typical sales timeline and the point when is the best moment for you. First, developers' representatives share with some trusted brokerages that the project will be launched soon. At this stage, there are no pictures, no amenities list, and no project name. What we normally know is the plot location, approximate prices, and some key features. And in reality, it's almost always enough to judge if it's a good investment opportunity or not. This is the best moment to express interest and begin negotiating. Developers often acknowledge the trust of investors who are willing to pay this early, and you'd also have time to push them on financial terms that are really important to you. The hardest part is getting access to these unannounced projects, and this is where we can help. Right now, one exceptional project is expected on Dubai Islands, one really underpriced one in Dubai South, and a top developer is going to launch a tower in an emerging area 12 minutes from downtown. If this is something that might interest you and you'd like to get in early, drop us a message and we'll be happy to help. But if you didn't come early, the next stage is a marketing launch. The developer's marketing team runs ad campaigns, organizes sales events, sometimes books stadiums to create more hype around the project, and shares brochures with more detailed information. Since this point, with every passing hour, your chances of negotiating anything drop significantly, because investors are submitting UIs non-stop. But what if you aren't early? Does that mean all of your chances of a nice discount are gone? No. We have another few tricks up our sleeves. Number 2. Putting down more money. I know it might sound counterintuitive, but let me explain. Let's say the refundable amount required to express interest in a $1 million townhouse is $50,000 US. The alternative is to pay $200,000 instead, and it will make a huge difference. And the developer representative may say that there is no need to do that, and you'll get no benefits from it, but you still should. When you decide to negotiate something, you'll have more power, because the developer doesn't want to refund the big amount they've already received, because this particular sales rep will have to explain to their manager or sales director that they couldn't close the deal after you prepaid such a big amount, and nobody in this pyramid wants to receive feedback that they're not able to close a hot prospect. Also, let's say you come too late and all the good units are already booked. Putting down a bigger amount might still help you, because there will be cancelled units. There always are. It doesn't mean these are bad. In most cases, people change their minds because of financial issues. When it happens, the cancelled unit is then offered to other potential buyers, and you will get the priority, because you showed the money. This scheme has almost no disadvantages. First, it's exactly how much you'd need to pay as a down payment if you buy the unit, so if you're going for it, you're just paying a few weeks earlier. Second, the expression of interest amount is refundable. You'll receive a refund if you decide not to proceed. The only thing you should keep in mind is that it will take some time until you get your money back. Some developers are faster while others are slower, but normally it takes around a month. And there is also one method that grows your rating in developers' eyes and gives you extra leverage. They tend to offer better terms to buyers who fall into this next category. Investors who repeatedly buy from a particular developer get special treatment. Normally you can get this status fast, but there are exceptions. One of our clients wanted to invest in 3 to 5 studios in different parts of Dubai. His total budget was around $1 million US. We shared this contacts with one big developer during negotiations, and they made an offer. They had a new project in Business Bay, one more in GVC, and another one planned in Production City. So the sales rep said, "Why don't you buy all 3 or 4 apartments from us? They'll be in different projects and in different locations, so you'll do what you planned, and in exchange, we offer you a discount." So this is the example where the developer encourages loyalty. Buying in different projects normally doesn't qualify as a bulk deal, and in many cases 3 units are not enough, but in this case the developer treated our client as a serial investor. Speaking of bulk deals, this is the way to unlock the largest discounts possible, and here's exactly how it works. Number 4. Bulk deals. It's only for investors with big budgets, but I wish all of our viewers to get into a position where you consider buying in bulk. Let me explain how they work, and then I'll share which discounts you can get in each case. A bulk deal refers to the purchase of at least 5 units. For some developers, $1 million US is enough, if you buy 5 studios, for example. But for big government-backed developers like Imar, $5 million US is probably the lower end. As bulk investor, you of course get better financial terms. But that's not all. What's maybe even more important, that you get a choice. This might sound weird for those who don't have much experience of investing in Dubai, but in highly demanded projects, most investors either buy a unit they're offered or get nothing.
but the bulk buyers are the absolute priority. They go ahead of everyone else and of course book the best units. So the levels to unlock the big discounts with bulk deals are the following. For around $1 million you can get 5 studios. For small and mid-sized developers, this might be enough to consider you almost a bulk investor. You shouldn't expect huge discounts though, maybe up to 5%. Then you could buy a full floor or even multiple floors. At a minimum, that'll require around $3 million if the project is in the affordable segment. The discount size can be drastically different depending on the developer, the project, and the purchase volume. The lower end is 2–3%, and the highest we've seen was almost 30%. And top level of the bulk deals is acquiring an entire building. The budget required ranges from $10–15 million for a very small building to more than $100 million. Not every project can be sold like that to a single buyer, and developers run their checks to make sure everything is clean and the buyer has the necessary funds to pay for the property. Buying in bulk offers significant advantages. First, you get better financial terms, so your profits when you resell will be higher than anyone else's. Or if you need to sell it faster, you can set a lower price and still make big profits. Second, by owning a substantial part of the building, you become a market maker. The price you set for rent or sale becomes the market price. You control the supply, so you can make it artificially limited and constantly raise the prices. Third, if you own a whole building and rent it out short term, you've basically created a hotel business. But residential properties, unlike hotels, don't require you to pay corporate income tax or VAT. Now that we've discussed the methods to strengthen your negotiation position, let's get to the big question: what can it get you? Before we dive into specific parameters you can negotiate, I have to warn you that with some developers, you can't negotiate much or at all. And doing that, if your place in the queue is not secure, will lead to you not getting a good property. You'll just waste your time. Starting with price. Let me quickly give you some examples to illustrate what you can achieve in different scenarios. Small boutique developer, 1 unit. 2% discount just for asking. Medium-sized reputable developer, 1 unit. 3% discount for paying 10% of the property value before the official launch. Big international developer, 1 unit. 4% discount for paying the full amount up front. One of the most reputable developers in Dubai, 2 units. 5% discounts for 2 big units. Medium-sized international developer, 1 unit. 10% discount for paying the full amount up front. Big private developer, 2 floors. 20% discount for bulk purchasing. But while everyone focuses on price, there are other significant aspects you can negotiate, like the deal D fee, which can substantially reduce your overall investment cost. This is the 4% of the property value paid to the Dubai Land Department, roughly at the same moment when the down payment is made. Not paying a 4% deal D fee is not the same as getting a 4% discount. Let me explain. First, the developer does not reduce the market price. All of the real estate transactions in Dubai are tracked and published, and developers are interested in the prices growing. So if they keep the price the same but provide a DLD waiver, no public data will indicate a discount. Second, for you as a buyer, the value of the benefit is different. Let's say you're acquiring a $1 million property. In the first case, you get a 4% discount. After discount, the price becomes $960,000. 4% deal D fee is $38,000. So the cost of property acquisition excluding admin fees is $998,000. To purchase this property, you need to pay $192,000 for the 20% down payment and $38,000 for the DLD fee, totaling $230,000 upfront. In the second case, you get a DLD waiver. The total property acquisition cost is $1 million, just $2,000 more than in the first case. However, your upfront payment is only $200,000 for the 20% down payment, because you don't pay the DLD fee. This basically means your initial financial burden is $30,000 lower. Next, let's talk about a payment plan. Because developers often do not provide a discount, but are willing to change the payment structure. So what you can do is not just improve the payment split, like 50-50 instead of 60-40, but also adjust the payment dates. Let me show you 2 real payment plans a client of ours secured during the pre-sale stage of a super hyped waterfront project. This property is a $2 million apartment. The first plan is a standard one for this developer, 70-30. This means 70% of the price and the DLD fee are paid during construction, which is $1,480,000, and the remaining 30% or $600,000 is paid on handover. The client must have paid at 4 points after the reservation date, tied to different phases of construction. First payment in 60 days, $200,000. Second payment in 120 days, $200,000. Remaining payments, $100,000 each. Now, here's what the client secured after some negotiation. The plan was changed from 70-30 to 60-40. This reduced the amount paid during construction to $1,280,000 including the deal D fee. The amount on handover was increased to $800,000. The thing is that changing the structure is not just about making things easier during construction. This big payment on handover can be mortgaged in Dubai. So because of that, the client got additional financial leverage. Additionally, the first two payments were reduced from $200,000 to $100,000 each, and the payment dates were pushed back. The first payment is due 90 days after the reservation instead of 60 days. The second payment is due 150 days after the reservation instead of 120 days, and later payments were adjusted similarly. Also, one small but useful thing you can negotiate is delaying the down payment. If you already made a booking payment, many developers can agree to a 1-month extension. And finally, let's move on to service charges. Despite the fact that their size is usually not really established that early, there is still something you can negotiate. You can get a waiver. In other words, you won't pay service charges for a period of time, such as a year or two. And that's not a small benefit. Let me give you an example. Let's say you bought an 800 square feet apartment in Arjan for $250,000 and you rent it out for $18,500 per year. So your annual yield if you don't pay service charges is 7.4%, but the service charges in such properties are approximately $4 per square foot, which is $3,200 for this apartment. This reduces your profit to $15,300, and that means your yield goes down to 6.1%. So obviously, everyone would like to get all these discounts and other financial benefits. But even if you're eligible, developers will not give away all these incentives. So here are some small negotiation tips that may help. First, show that you're serious. And I can't stress enough how crucial this is. Developers have seen tens of thousands of people who are asking for benefits without real intention to buy, so they don't want to waste their time. If you're trying to negotiate financial terms but won't even share your ID when the developer's representative asks, everyone feels you're just window shopping. The same applies to putting down an expression of interest. If you don't pay the few percent, fully refundable payment, they doubt you have the money to pay for the unit. And if you're buying as a legal entity and the developer is asking for a letter of intent, share it. It's not legally binding and it literally costs you nothing. But if you don't do that, that's a red flag. Another thing you could do is write down the check, but not hand it over. For example, if you want to purchase a property for $3 million instead of $3.2 million, show the $3 million check to the developer sales rep. That shows your offer is real. Of course, for this, you or your trusted representative should come in person. That's the next tip. Meet in person. Zoom is better than chatting on WhatsApp, and in-person meetings are better than Zoom. Based on our experience, the difference in what you can get is huge, and sometimes everything it takes to overcome a hard no is just showing up. Third, don't limit negotiation to just one condition. See the big picture. If nothing can be done with the price, try to get a better payment plan structure. If you can't change that, then push payments to the later stages of the development.
What financing options are available and which one should I choose?
As I said, when you buy from a developer in Dubai, you usually get access to a flexible payment plan. These plans let you split your payment, so you pay some during construction and the rest after. Each developer does it their own way, but most payment plans require you to pay anywhere from 40 to 90% during construction. This is usually split into installments that are tied to specific dates, construction milestones, or both, and they are spread out several years. Some developers even give you a choice between multiple plans. Imtiaz, for example, often offers two standard options, 50-50 and 70-30. In the 70-30 plan, the final 30% is paid in monthly installments over 30 months after you get the keys. We call it a post-handover payment plan. But there is something to watch for. That extra flexibility usually comes at a cost. Expect a price increase of around 10%. And what about other hidden fees, say taxes? A quick disclaimer. This isn't tax advice, so please consult your tax advisor before you make any decisions. In general, the UAE has no personal income tax and no capital gains tax for individuals. Here's what that means for real estate. First, when you buy a property, and if you do it with crypto, you don't pay capital gains tax, unlike in many other countries. Second, if you rent out the property, that rental income isn't taxed in the UAE. And third, when you sell the property, your profits aren't taxed in the UAE either. But there is bad news too. This income might be taxed in your home country. For example, if you're a US citizen, you'll have to pay taxes in America no matter where you live. And since there are no taxes paid in Dubai, you won't have a foreign tax credit to offset your US tax liability. Also, even though Dubai doesn't have a property tax, it does have the housing fee. I mentioned it earlier. This is 5% of the rental value.
What's the process of buying a ready property?
There are 7 steps. First step is the terms. You and your broker will decide on the basics: budget, location, number of bedrooms, and the commission. Expect to pay around 2%. Then you and the broker will sign a contract. Step 2. Your broker starts the search. They'll shortlist properties and arrange in-person or virtual viewings until you find the one. Step 3. You'll put down a deposit, which is usually 10% of the unit price. This is made out via check. It shows your commitment and also protects the seller if you back out. Step 4. Sign the MOU, or Memorandum of Understanding. This is a standard document issued by the Dubai Land Department. It lays out all the terms of the deal. Step 5. You'll hand over the deposit check. Step 6. Finalize the deal. You'll go to a trustee office. It's a licensed center authorized by the Dubai Land Department to handle real estate transactions. They'll verify all the documents, process payments, and handle the official property transfer. This is also where you'll pay the DLD transfer fee and any other charges. At this point, either you or your representative have to physically be in Dubai. Step 7. The Dubai Land Department issues the title deed, and the property is officially yours.
What's the process of buying an off-plan property?
There are only 5 steps. Step 1. Submit an expression of interest. This one's optional, but it matters if the project hasn't officially launched yet. You put down a fully refundable amount, usually starting around $7,000, to show you're serious. It gets you on the buyer list, and the earlier or bigger your payment, the better your priority. That means first pick of the available units when they're released. Step 2. Reserve a unit. If the developer hasn't set up an escrow account yet, you'll pay 10% of the property price to log it in. Then the developer gives you a booking form that outlines all the key details, like unit size, view, payment plan, and any resale conditions. Step 3. Pay the down payment. You'll top up your initial 10% to make up to the standard 20% down payment. At this point, you'll also pay the 4% DLD fee and a small developer fee. Step 4. Sign the contract and get accrued. Next comes sales and purchase agreement. Developers normally can take up to 2 months to prepare it. Once it's signed, you can get accrued. Accrued is a digital certificate issued by the Dubai Land Department for off-plan property transactions. It proves your ownership before the construction is finished. And then you pay the rest of the balance according to your payment plan. Step 5. When the property is ready, you'll get to inspect it. If anything is not quite right, the developer will fix it. After that, it's time for handover. You get your title deed, and the process is done.
How do I make a payment?
There are 3 ways. You can pay by card online or a developer's office, a wire transfer, or crypto. Paying by card sounds simple, but it can be the opposite. Some cards aren't accepted by certain developers. American Express often won't work. Also, your bank might freak out when you try to make a $30,000 or $50,000 transaction and just block your card. You can rely more on a wire transfer. You can make one from almost any bank around the world, if your country is not sanctioned. And you don't even need to wait for the developer to receive the money. A PDF receipt or a screenshot is usually enough to reserve your unit. But make sure you include the developer's IBAN in the transfer, or they'll never get the money. Your third option, crypto, is also easy. You can just send USDT to the developer's wallet address. And almost every developer in the UAE accepts crypto.
What if I fail to pay?
Obviously, we don't recommend this. But things happen. If you find yourself in a tight spot due to money logistics or planning difficulties, and you can't make your payment, there are 3 stages. First, the developer will send you an email to notify you of the deadline and request the payment you missed. Second, they'll get DLD involved. They'll issue you a 30-day notice. This serves as your last chance to make up the outstanding payment. And if the 30 days are up, we enter the third stage. DLD will issue an official document on behalf of the developer. The terms differ depending on how much of the construction they've completed. For 80% or more, the developer can ask DLD to auction the property to make up the payment. For 60 to 80% completion, the developer can cancel your agreement and keep up to 40% of the property's value for themselves. For 60% or less, the developer can do the same, but they can only keep up to 25% of the property's value.
Part 4. Making money. Is it possible to resell the property during construction?
I'll walk you through all stages of investing in new property and highlight when it's a good moment to cash out and how realistic these huge returns actually are. The starting point is making the down payment. That's 10 to 20% of the property price plus 4% Dubai Land Department fee. Paying these fees doesn't immediately allow you to fully execute your property rights. You still need to sign a sales and purchase agreement, and sometimes developers can take up to 2 months to prepare it. Only after this you will receive an ACUD, a digital certificate proving your ownership rights. So the paperwork is finally done and now you can sell your unit. Right? Not so fast. There are limitations. Every developer has their own rules, but generally, you can't resell the property until you've paid off a certain portion. Usually, it's between 30 and 45% of the total price. And even if you find a buyer sooner, the developer won't allow the sale. But why would developers set these restrictions? Because it's a bubble protection measure. Developers don't want a bunch of millionaire wannabes selling in panic because they don't have enough money for the next payment. And of course, they'd have to sell at a discount. Developers care because when a large number of units hit the market at reduced prices, it makes their life harder. First, developers are trying to sell new projects at higher prices. They might also have unsold inventory. If units go to the secondary market at lower prices, developers will struggle to achieve their goals. Second, reselling at lower prices drags down the market prices. Developers prefer showing positive dynamics and growing their prices. And the growing prices help increase the margins. And finally, if investors fail to resell and can't keep up with the payment schedule, developers experience cash flow problems. So they try to filter out risky buyers early by imposing minimum repayment terms. All this makes the 100% ROI scheme unrealistic. Normally, you can't resell after just a 20% down payment. You'd have to pay more. But let's assume you've reached the stage where the required minimum is paid and construction is underway. This might seem like a good time to cash out by selling at a markup, but there could still be obstacles. First, the developer might still have unsold units. That's negative for investors trying to resell, because the developer competes with you, and potential buyers might buy directly from them. So why would someone pay you a higher price? So for those wanting quick profits from flipping, it's crucial to invest in projects that sell out quickly. Let me give you one unfortunate and one fortunate example. This one is a building in Ercan, built by a decent but very small and relatively unknown developer. They started selling about a year ago. By now, some investors might wanna sell, but the developer still hasn't sold out with over 25 units available. So the chances of selling such property on the secondary market with a premium are nearly zero. But there are completely opposite examples. Take bankrupt villas by a hill. From the start, you could tell this project would likely flip successfully, because initial demand far exceeded supply. Many investors failed to secure a unit despite being ready to pay millions for a villa. From April 2024 to February 2025, the average investor who resold their property achieved a 13% higher price, and some got a 23 or 25% upside. Another obstacle to maximizing your gains when selling during construction is an initially high purchase price. Here is a real example. A new off-plan project was recently announced right by the water canal. The average price is 2.3 thousand dirhams per square foot, or about $630. Nearby, there is a ready building just handed over. It's priced similarly at 2.3 thousand dirhams. Between them is another slightly older building priced at 2.2 thousand dirhams, or roughly $600. Sometimes new buildings are significantly improved compared to older ones. But here, all these properties are essentially identical. Same class, same developer, same views. So why would anyone pay 10 or 20% more for your half-completed apartment? The third and possibly the most significant obstacle is that mortgages are almost exclusively available for ready properties. Let me explain the implications by describing two main buyer segments in Dubai. The first group is mortgage buyers. These are UAE residents that typically can't purchase without a mortgage. They pay a 20% down payment and fees, and then repay the remaining 80% over 25 years. They go for ready properties only, either because they A. can use a mortgage on them, or B. intend to live there. The second group is cash buyers. These are often non-residents whose mortgage access is limited, or residents who see investment value in off-plan properties. So they go for new projects and leverage flexible payment plans. I've intentionally simplified this, but when you sell during construction, you effectively cutting out the significant first group, which dominates the secondary market. And if you'll tell my team that you want to invest for flipping, They'll explain this specific moment. It's about 2 or 3 months before handover. This moment is much better for cashing out than any previous stage. The building is nearly completed. It kinda moved from paper plans to reality, so it typically results in an increased value. The growth rate during this period depends on many factors, like initial pricing and market growth, but it's usually safe to assume a 10 to 20% increase. Also, your property becomes much more liquid because mortgage buyers are now interested. Since the property is nearly ready, buyers can easily secure financing. However, you might still fail to make money at this point. For example, if a building or building complex has too many units, it can be difficult to resell profitably, like with this one with over 10,000 units. Off-plan apartments sold in 2020 and 2021 for around 1,490 dirhams or $406 per square foot. As the handover approached, many investors rushed to sell their units. So by 2023, prices had only slightly increased to 1,505 dirhams or $410 per square foot. But if these investors had waited a bit longer, they could have sold at 1,700 dirhams or $463. Still not ideal, but better. Another factor limiting gains is overpriced projects. When the property was priced too high initially, then when it becomes ready, buyers won't see the point in paying more than for other ready options. Like this building in one of the Dubai's central communities. In 2018, it was priced at 1,700 dirhams or $460 per square foot. That was 11% higher than similar properties nearby. By 2021, the building was completed, but its price remained the same, while the overall area prices grew by 19%. The thing that makes everything even more challenging at this point is time pressure. If you don't have the money to pay for the remaining part at the handover, you'll have to sell for the best offer you can get in these 2-3 months. But there is a solution. What can help you is getting the mortgage yourself for the remaining payment. If you are a resident or became one through property investment, you have a better chance to get a mortgage. You still need a transparent source of income, which also must be higher than a certain threshold. But if you are eligible, then it can be an option. So what to do to avoid all these traps and flip the property successfully? First, choose the right areas. Flipping works best when the area is growing faster than the broader market. Second, choose the right developer for this. Some tend to build projects that gain value quickly. Some might be great for living, but just don't grow that fast. And finally, avoid red flags. Trying to successfully flip an overpriced project is a hopeless idea.
How to rent out the property and who'll manage my property.
You'll need to work with a real estate broker. This is a free service because they get their commission from the tenant. They'll look after everything, from finding the tenant, to preparing all the documents, to handling payments. These payments will be made out to you via checks. Collecting and depositing them is also a part of their job. Tenants are expected to pay for all utilities, property maintenance, and housing fees. All you have to pay is the service charges I mentioned earlier. Or you can rent your property out short-term. In this case, it does have to be furnished before it can go to the market. If you're renting out short-term, we really recommend working with a property management company. They'll create and manage attractive listings on booking platforms like Airbnb and Property Finder, change the prices dynamically, handle guest queries, and organize cleaning. They may even furnish the property for you. Of course, this strategy comes with other costs. The company requires a management fee, which usually comes up to 20% of your total income. You'll also pay all the utility fees, service charges, and housing fees. But renting out short-term has great benefits. You can set higher prices per month with dynamic pricing for high and low seasons. On top of this, you can sell or move into the property with no notice period. Your third option is to sell your property when it's completed.
What's the process to sell a property?
This is a 6-step process. Step 1. Discuss everything with your broker. Agree on your selling price, commission, and how the case will be handled for viewings. Once everything is settled, you'll sign an agreement between yourself and your broker. Step 2. Your broker will begin marketing the property. They'll show it to potential buyers and list it on popular real estate websites. Step 3. Once the broker finds a buyer, you'll both sign the MOU, Memorandum of Understanding. Step 4. The buyer issues a deposit check for at least 10% of the sale price. Step 5. You'll apply for a no objection certificate from the developer. This typically costs around $1,000 and confirms that there are no outstanding payments or issues with the property, and that the developer is happy for the transfer to go through. The final step is a visit to a licensed trustee office. They'll verify the documents, the buyer will pay the DLD fees and any other charges, and the sale is complete. Your only costs are the brokerage commission. This is the amount you'll agree upon with the broker. And another cost is the $1,000 no objection certificate fee. This is the end of our guide, but we will continue helping you. Drop us a message with your requirements and we'll start working on your case right away. However, if you want to gather more information on the topic, learn about the mistakes you should avoid. We made a detailed video about red flags in Dubai real estate. Check it out.